So it's pretty exciting times that we find ourselves in this exploration of consciousness, yeah, you might want to call it.
Yeah, it is. It is an exploration. I think people really, if they just take a moment and delve a little bit deeper into what is available, even what's available as far as accessible as what we have just in books, um, they're going to, have a coming to moment where they go, yeah, God this, God that, gods,
Mm.
people from before, people from the future, people from the past. It somehow is all intertwined, and it's all living inside of us. And I'm I'm of the pure heart where I know, I don't think, I know that this wasn't by accident, and
Mm.
and however it was created is for an intention. And we're here, and we just happen to be living in this existence at this moment. And to be aware of that, consciously aware of it, is a great thing. And I wish I could, like most people, when I tell them this, they go, "Oh, what are you smoking, man? you know, what's up?"
Yeah, you often get that response, don't you, from people, because it moves past the analytical aspect of ourselves that we get so conditioned and caught in. What we can perceive, what we can understand, what we can analyze, but there's this different part of us, and you and I have had this discussion before. We've spoken about it as the higher self, or this creative aspect of ourselves. The psychiatrists like to call it the right side of the brain. But a lot of us are getting more in touch, and we're using that now as, some of us probably more rarely than others, but as the more dominant part of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found, particularly with myself, I've always been like an open vessel in that way. Um, and when I was very young, very, very young, and I was going through a pretty decent amount of things that were happening in my life, with my parents divorcing, like many children have gone through. But I just realized that I was just more self-aware, even at a very, very early age. And whatever the things that are out there and the things that are happening in our universe, I felt more connected to even then. I remember probably 3 years old. No, maybe no, maybe a little older than that, maybe 5 years old. I remember my mom allowed me to, like, I mean, I'd fallen asleep like many kids do. I do this with my children. I fell asleep on the floor. My mom put some blankets on me, and this was one of the many houses that we had rented. Right, there were some of them are very old, some of them are, I don't know, maybe had history, at least some sort of spiritual history. And I remember looking and waking up that night, and I looked to the sink in the kitchen because it was not too far from where I was, and I saw a female figure, and she saw me see her. And when she and I saw her, I saw these, enigmatic wings that came out of her.
Wow.
And um, I walked, I got up and I walked over to her to have a conversation, and she just went like this to me. And and she just vanished. It was
Wow.
and and I'm not a sleepwalker. I've never sleptwalk. This has happened continuously in my life. I've had multiple occasions, like when I lost my stepmother, I had an interaction with her. So I feel like I've always been open to that cerebral idea of stuff that is running linear with our consciousness, but not everybody's accessing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Not everyone has the ability to access it, but not everyone is. It's interesting. How old were you when you first started seeing visions and into different
Well,
realities?
that was really, I think, the very first. Well, there was one other memory, but it was that wasn't a vision, but it was a little bit earlier. I was only 9 months old, and it was my first memory, and I remember seeing hot air balloons. So I realized that I still can remember that image of those hot air balloons because they made such an impact. But when this particular incident happened, I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
And we moved a lot, because of my childhood and because of parents being divorced and money issues and all those things. So we really we were kind of like, we're a lot of like shanty style homes, and some homes that, they were just, rentals or whatever for whatever reason. But there had been a continuous episodes, I would call them, maybe, of seeing some sort of spiritual interaction. So much so, case in point, my sister, who's about she's 3 years older than me, and she was in a room that was next to my room, and we were on the second floor of this old house. And this house it was crazy, man, because there was this old rocking chair that came with this house, and nobody ever thought anything about it because we had moved, I don't know, like 12 other times as kids. And we had moved into this house, and this rocking chair was there. And I moved into this room where there was like an access to the attic, which was scary by any means. Like, it's like, there's the attic, there's a doorway. It's a very small doorway. It's very weird. And so I felt like I had a hard time sleeping anyway in that room to begin with. But one night I walked into the sort of conjoined area that is between the rooms, and there was this rocking chair that was just rocking slowly back and forth. And I immediately ran to my sister's room and I was like, "Can I sleep with you?" And she's like, "What's wrong?" I said, the rocking chair, the rocking chair. And she's like, "I've seen it too."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, there's been multiple incidents, and I've never been afraid. But we can talk about this a little bit more because it gets even deeper when my stepmom, when she took her life, and she we had experiences together, her and I, after death, which is even my father was like, I know. Yeah, she came to me too. So I feel like our consciousness is something that's available to everyone, or not everyone, but I mean ourselves, as much as we want to open it up to and accept it. And if we accept it, it's pretty brilliant. There's a lot of things I don't understand. I still question it to this day, but it keeps happening.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your life, because I want to talk through your story. I think it's a fascinating one. I think a lot of people will find inspiring for many different reasons, because you are obviously an actor, and your most well-known that I know of that we've discussed was your role on The Bold and the Beautiful for quite some years. And I know you've done many other things in different shows and different things. But let's go back to the beginning of your journey, because I think it's a wonderful story of, I call it coming of age, where you've gone through what we're conditioned to believe is making it, and then experiencing the other side of it. And I know that's going to speak to a lot of people when you share that today, but take us back to the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, brother. And I call you my brother because we've already had a wonderful conversation, and there's people that I keep that term very close to. So thank you, Paul.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
So my childhood, I mean, it begins in Washington State, in this, America and the States, and I grew up in my parents were very young. My dad was 16 years old when he got my mom pregnant. I think she was 17 years old. It was a situation that they just didn't know how to, get out of. It was a very, um, sort of conservative time in American history. And so it's like, that happens, you have to marry and blah, blah, blah. Well, they married and they had 4 children, and I was the youngest of 4. And I never knew my parents together. I was the youngest of 4 children. In fact, I was considered, and this is nothing against my father by any means, but obviously they knew they were already on the outs. And when he found out that my mom was pregnant, he wanted her to have an abortion. Somehow, I made it through. Like, mom refused. And I don't think she holds that on him or they hold it on each other, but it was just something that was like, wow, like, that's something to absorb just as a human being. Go like, my existence was on a choice, somebody's choice.
How did that make you feel when you first heard that?
Great. I mean, I guess grateful. I mean, mostly grateful that I'm here, because I felt like I had a purpose. I felt more connected to something that I must be a part of, that I somehow made it through. But that revelation didn't happen, I think, until I was maybe a teenager. The second hurdle after I was born, which I also do not remember, my throat collapsed as a child. And so they were ready to, I was sitting around the hour, 24 hours. They were going to give me a tracheotomy. And which, is like, it's a permanent basic thing. They puncture your vocal cords. Yeah. And as a singer today and a musician and an actor, my voice is everything. And so the fact that this, my mom told me they had me hooked up to this machine, and if the surgery didn't, or the operation wasn't effective, they were 100% just gonna, put a hole in my neck.
Wow.
And somehow I evaded that too. And I'm not saying that it's a special reason. I just think it was something that was, I don't know, maybe something inside of me. I don't know. I mean, because I can't, I'm sitting here looking at my guitar right now. I could never imagine. The only reason I learned to play guitar, even as simply as I do, was to sing. Because I love to sing. I love to, just have, just be able to, even if it sucks, just to sing. That's a beautiful thing. And everybody should do it. And everybody should embrace it. I don't care if you go, I don't have a good voice. Who cares? We all know, that you sing in the shower, you sing in places in alleyways, and sometimes you hum something that you've heard. Do it more. It's such a really wonderful enlightenment through your just it's not going to be a permanent thing, but it's something that just, is available at the moment. So do it. So that was that. And then my parents were divorced, and I guess, I mean, in a shortcut, man, it was, my parents got divorced. My mom got remarried to a man who had just finished a 3-year stint for selling drugs. And he was a reformed man, and still is a reformed man, and he still is married to my mom.
Okay.
And
wow.
And he's an amazing guy. He's had his own self battles and alcoholism, drug addiction, and those things. But he has battled those, and he has been sober for many, 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 many years, decades. But there was a time where I watched him, hurt my mother. There was times where I watched her hurt him. And through that period, they realized they both needed help, and they got the help they needed, and they I mean, our childhood wasn't that much better as far as like the um, the luxuries of what some families could have,
Mm.
but at the same time they were more united after those problems.
Mm.
So yeah, so that was that. And then eventually I was in I mean, I started like questioning, like, because my mom had custody and I wanted to go with my father. And my father was kind of like the anchor. Like, he was the guy that always seemed solid. He was always the one making the child support payments on time, getting all the, getting us what we needed. Um, and honestly, like, probably should have been the guy that was in our lives, to be honest.
Mm.
But
Why do you
because of
think
that,
he left?
yeah.
Do you know now, these years later?
um, why he left?
Yeah, yeah. Why didn't you think he stuck around? I mean, I know they obviously had challenges and they didn't feel that connection, but
I
did
think
you?
it was just too innocent, too young, too
Mm.
early. I
Yeah.
think they were just not meant to be together,
Mm.
but somehow they tried to keep themselves together based upon morals, principles,
Yeah.
just, societal idealism.
Yeah.
And so they try to steer that, and then they realized they were just completely unhappy. And
Mm.
um so that was that. But I always thought my father was the one that probably should be raising me. And so I decided that at one point, in the third grade, I said, I'm gonna move. I want to be with you, Dad. And he's like, the courts will not allow it. And he's like, look, the only way that you can make this work is you got to give your mom the most amount of hell. And which sucked because I didn't want to do that because I loved her,
Yeah.
but I had to make it seem where this is where I felt like I needed to belong. And I did just that. I made my mom's life hell. I did, to make that transfer to get into my dad's world, so I
Mm.
could get to know my father for the first time. I was only allowed to see him twice a year.
Wow. So
I don't
obviously
know if that
living,
was by accident. It
yeah.
was by accident or court ordered, but that's what all my parents were doing at that time.
Right. Wow.
And it was like I felt like I was missing. And every time I'd visit him for a couple weeks at a time, I would just leave in tears,
Mm.
crying, and I'd cry for a week straight, missing him.
Mm.
And it was so I guess I want to try to lift this up a little bit, um getting to around this wheel of reciprocal ideas that that I had to go through was that I needed something different. I needed stability. My dad had lived in the same place his entire life. My mom had moved us to like 14 different schools. I mean, I would been my first grade year alone, I was in 8 different elementary schools. I was held back. Um, so it was like, where are you starting? Where, what is going on? I mean, like, as a kid, you go like, I was emotionally unstable. All the teachers was like, oh yeah, he's emotionally unstable. He needs to be held back. Maybe that was the best thing that was for me, but I was held back. And ended up having to recover from all that. But um, academically, that was never an issue. I mean, I ended up, excelling through school and scholastic programs. But what happened was I moved with my father and my stepmother. He was remarried by this point, and then you know, uh, there was a lot of I don't even know. I'm going to go into all of this, but there was a lot of different issues with my stepmother and my father having children with other um, with my mom and her not really being our mom, and she couldn't actually biologically have children. She wasn't able
Right.
to.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of um, some sort of remorse that was inside of her. Um, Ultimately, what happened down the road, I mean, now we're flashing forward, is my stepmom committed suicide when I was in high school.
Mm.
And um and I had to be there for my dad again. And now the roles were reversed.
Mm.
This is all before anything has ever happened good to me. right? This was all just one complication after the next, after the next, after the next, through my entire childhood.
Mm. Mm.
I graduated with honors. I graduated with a very strong GPA, an SAT score. I was accepted to multiple colleges in America with UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and I had intentions to go into business school. I had the drive. I had the drive that nothing was, if that was the worst it was going to be that I had already experienced, then everything else was going to be a breeze. And that was always in my mind. Like, it's got to get better. It's got to get better than this. And so I found a path. I found the truth. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I told my dad, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an actor because that's what I like. And he goes, well, it's your life. and I'll never forget that. And he did not support that in whatsoever. And he wasn't supporting me at that time anyway. A year later, I was nominated for an Emmy, not an Oscar. I wish an Oscar, but an Emmy. And he flew down. He flew down to Los Angeles, and he goes, let's hang out. He came to my little apartment that I had. It was a very, like, one bedroom, I don't know, like 900 square feet, like real small little place that I paid for myself. I wasn't even 20 years old. I wasn't even able to drink, but I already had an apartment in Beverly Hills at that point in my life. And I said to him, I said, what do you think? And he pulled me aside and he said, son, remember that time you wanted to be a caddy for a golf tournament? And I said, yeah. And I like playing golf. He's like, I didn't understand what you wanted then, and I'm sorry that I didn't allow you to do that. And that was his way of saying that he was sorry for not recognizing my ambition. And now hearing and seeing the ambition, it changed his perspective on what his ideology or his fatherism or whatever he was trying to instill in me. And trust me, very successful man, but he's very, very, he doesn't speak emotionally. And that was always like, why can't I just talk to my dad? And maybe my son feels the same way with me. I don't know, but I try to be more present than anything. And I think that's the idea, right? Is to be present and embrace everything that's different or indifferent to you, and be willing to be open.
Well, and I don't think that his reaction was out of the ordinary. I mean, a lot of people, particularly around actors, and I've known many over the years, entertainers of some kind, do get this response from their parents because, as you know, it's an incredibly challenging industry to find ongoing success with. And I guess it comes from a place of care. I'm sure in your father's case it was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was from love. It was love. It was just him being cautious. He screwed up his life at a very, not saying screwed up his life, but cautionary tale. He started a little bit too young and had to make, sacrifices in order to do that. So he was a harder model of most.
Yeah.
He was just had a very staunchy way about how somebody should live their life. And I think it was a reflection upon himself, not upon me. I know it was, but it reflected upon us because he was living through us communicatively.
So you finally get this break with Bold and the Beautiful, right? You auditioned. Do you want to talk about how you came to find the role?
Sure. Yeah, no, that I mean, this is where the whole breakthrough happens. And this is where but the whole career began. And I can never forget and ever forget to recognize the people that were involved in my life at that point. The summer I was getting ready to go to college. I was accepted to UCLA, UC Santa Barbara. I accepted UCSB, and I realized I didn't have any money to pay for college because they weren't giving scholarships out to, you know, necessarily guys like me making a good GPA, SAT. It just wasn't in the cards, but they accepted me and I would have to figure out my own way.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I was going to give my hand again at acting in the meantime, because I was so close to LA and was like, I told my mom, and she goes, oh, I just think it's so great. You've always had such a desire and a heart to, for that sort of thing. And who knows? And I was working at Denny's. Now that's, for y'all. And I don't know, you guys have Denny's, and you don't have Denny's out there.
We used to have Dennys years ago, and I've
No, you
visited
didn't.
many times when I've been in the States. So I know Dennys.
So you're familiar. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So yeah, so Denny's is a chain restaurant that's well known for their breakfasts, but they also
Mhm.
serve 24 hours a day. They're open 24 hours a day. And it's sort of an old idea because that started in the 50s. And anyway, this is when I realized that I was going to be a success, Paul. This is a true story. I needed to make some money. I was in high school. I could not, I was in Southern California. I had to finish out my education in high school. And the high schools that I was, where my mom was living, because we were living in a fifth wheel trailer. Now, I don't know if you know
Wow.
what that is. That's a trailer that's pulled behind a truck, or like,
Yeah.
some sort of caravan where that pops out and whatnot. And my parents had been, I had been in foster care previous to that.
Okay.
And I haven't quite touched on that. After my stepmom died, I went into foster care for several years, and I felt a big disconnect with my family. My sisters and brothers were older than me; they had already families and children, and so I was really kind of on my own. And I realized after about a couple of years of living this beautiful life, like my sophomore, junior year, with this wonderful family,
Mm.
that I felt this desire to make things better, this desire to strive for more, to find forgiveness, find truth and happiness inside myself. And I realized I needed to reconnect with my mom. And they were down in California. So I decided that I told the foster family, I said, look, I love everything you guys have done for me. You've actually changed me. I've been going to church with you guys. I found the Lord. I found this. I found these things. But what I've realized through this entire obstacle was that I need to make this right with the core group of my life, which is my mom. Mm-hmm. And so I moved down and gave up this. I was living in this beautiful house. I mean, 5,000 square feet. Moved into a fifth wheel trailer in Escondido, California. Mm-hmm. Small little desert town, tarantulas, I mean, you're not uncommon to that in Australia, but once I saw my first tarantula, I was like, whoa, okay, this is real. But yeah, so moved in with them, and I realized the local schools were not up to par. There was like drive-by shootings that were happening there. This is basically the Compton of Los Angeles, but in San Diego. It's called Oceanside, California. It's a big military base that's right there, called Camp Pendleton. And so in Camp Pendleton, you got Marines going back and forth. It's a Marine base. And right there is a Dennys. And I was like, I need to make some money. So I decided that I had this brilliant idea, and I don't recommend this for anybody out there, but I had this brilliant idea. Maybe you can do it and sell it. I was going to go into every establishment and tell them that I had already filled out an application and I was checking up on my application.
I love it.
And so every place I went to, they were searching for my application. And the Dennys that I went to, they couldn't find it. And the manager's like, well, do you mind just taking an interview with us? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I had an interview and I was hired like that. No application ever. Right. So hired. And next thing you know, I'm working there. My mom's like, well, maybe Aaron Spelling will come in. Now, if y'all, Aaron Spelling was 90210 and Dynasty and all the big soaps over the years and on primetime TV and, you know, you name it. And I said, Mom, I don't think Aaron Spelling eats at Denny's. I'm just going to throw that out there. She's like, you never know. Well, ultimately, somebody did come in there and saw me, and he was a photographer, and he worked with a lot of different magazines. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about modeling? And I was like, not really. I'm kind of short. Not really a model guy. But he's like, well, we got a great look, and maybe we take some pictures. I could help you out. And next thing you know, I was up in LA, and out of about, and I tell my students a lot because, you know, I have acting workshops and things that I work on. But I tell my students, I go, look, I had my headshots, my resume, and everything together. This is back in the day. This is before GPS. We had Thomas guides where we had to look at maps and go, oh, CJ to, you know, 23, you know, and like we would figure out, like, we're trying to figure out where we're going just in LA, right? Crazy, right? And I would drop off all my headshots and resume. Out of like 50 of those, one called me. One. Wow. And they said, can you come back now? I said, well, I'm already halfway home to San Diego. They said, okay, we'll do it tomorrow then. Come back. We really like your look. And anyway, that was the first agency that signed me, because I didn't give up. I never gave up on that spirit of trying. Go for it. Get after it. If you just, you know, I just had Mike O'Malley. He's an actor, writer, very famous guy. He was, you know, he's done a lot of stuff over the years. He's a showrunner. He's got the show Heels on Stars, which is about WWF. And he's got you know, 2 other shows that are in the works with Stars Company. You know, the one thing he says, like, guys, you have to realize if you're an actor or you're a producer, you're a director, you're this, you have to write. Keep writing. Just don't stop writing. Keep writing it down, whether you're journaling it, whether you're, you know, figure out the path to get there. And, you know, keep submitting your work. So I just happened to get lucky. I mean, I have to be honest. It was, you know, timing, luck. Bold and the Beautiful was not on my radar. Like, I was just thinking, like, maybe I'll get a commercial or 2. And simultaneously, I mean, this is literally how it worked out. I was 3 months into auditioning. Simultaneously, a Nickelodeon show, Bold and the Beautiful, and a Pepsi commercial. They all landed at one time.
Right. And
they were all going to start on the same dates. My mom was sitting there going, like, it's about time. What's happening? It's about time. And I had to choose. And the one thing I chose was because it was a contract, was the Bold and Beautiful.
Yeah. Right.
So thus it all begins. 17 years old, just fresh out of high school. After that whole litany of nonsense that I just spoke about, it was, so I hold the things that are meaningful in my life very, very precious, because I know I can distinguish between the two. And that's what I try to instill in everybody that I meet and encounter, and they come into my life and work with me on a professional level or even just a personal level.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the kind of the the point in your life where everything changes, isn't it?
Yeah. It all changed. It was it was a very like abrupt change. I had no idea what it was like to work on a professional film set. I mean, what do you know, I was coming out of high school.
Mm, mm,
Suddenly I'm there and I'm on set and not knowing what to do and just hanging on by a thread.
mm.
I had a lot of great mentors that were helping me, but I had a lot of early on predators too that were there,
Are you comfortable
which
to
is
talk about any of that? Because I think that is something that's being
sure.
discussed a lot, particularly on the female side, but often people will forget that males can be targeted as well for,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I'm totally comfortable talking about it. I will keep the names anonymous.
of course.
But when I started in the industry, it was a free for all for
Mm,
predators that are in higher anarchy of what the entertainment industry is. And I wasn't the only one. Oh shit, I heard a ton of people tell me stories about, oh, I met with, I was doing this thing for Tommy Hilfiger and blah blah blah, and I had to meet with this photographer, and he made me drop my drawers, and it was really uncomfortable. And then like he said, if you want the new Tommy campaign, then you gotta XYZ. And so like, and it wasn't anything new. And nobody was doing anything about it at that time. It was a different industry. It was just like, oh yeah, when you rise to that that area in your career that maybe you can take liberties. And that's what happened. So I step on set. I'm brand new. I'm 17 years old. I had to have somebody co-sign my apartment for me because I was underage.
mm,
I mean, that's how, I mean, let's be real about this, right?
yeah.
And now I'm working on I'm making as much as a doctor is making, signed under a contract, but I can't sign my own fucking lease.
Yes, it's crazy.
Crazy. And so, I now I go to this set and I'm learning. And one of the producers, not executive producer, but producer had long been fired, and also fired because of the situation that wasn't only brought on me by him, but was brought on by multiple people over the years.
Mm, mm,
Um, you know, stereotypical sexual advances, just trying to be, a creeper and doing really, basically putting actors on the line if they didn't comply.
right.
And
And he had the
and that,
power to do so.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
the total power.
Yeah. Right.
And but I always say it always starts from the top. It always starts from the very tippy top. So when I say that, I mean, when you have good leaders, you have good teams. If you have somebody who leads you to the light, you will have wonderful leaders and people that will cooperate and follow that. If you have bad leaders, then you have a bad seed that gets implanted and it follows it all the way down the apple tree.
Mm,
And everyone is tasting that bad apple all along the way. So it's really important to, if I could give any advice to anybody who's like getting into this entertainment industry, is to be aware of who you're with, and make sure that these people that you're signing contracts with are not bad in that way. It doesn't happen as much anymore, right? A lot of stuff is being corrected. The woke movement has been a grandeur thing, mostly for women, but not so
yeah.
much for men, like you were saying, Paul.
Well, I think it's
And
an important thing to talk about from the male side, because this has gone on just as much for it's gone on for a lot of males, a lot of male models, actors like yourself, but it rarely gets spoken about. And maybe we think that men can handle this stuff, but I think it leaves an incredible scar on the soul when this occurs, particularly because of the power imbalance. You know, like these people have such a say, and they can certainly ruin someone's career. And I've heard stories of that. You know, when people haven't complied to certain things, and they've lost a job or a position because of it.
Yeah. And a certain female producer did that again right after this guy
Wow.
that I was talking about. And again, I was not even 18 years old. I was just
Mm.
starting up
Wow.
in the industry. I eventually I turned 18 through the process going, because it was like I had to do all these callbacks and wardrobe fittings. I was 17. They were like, oh, they were so happy I was turning 18. But this was a very powerful woman, very powerful in the anarchy of this. And this is the first time, guys, I'm actually opening talking about it. Obviously, I'm not gonna mention names, but cornered me and said, hey, you're my boy toy, right?
Mm.
Right.
Mm. Wow.
And as an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, I thought, am I going to lose my job
Mm.
if I don't comply? And I know there's those guys out there and they're like, oh man, you should be so flattered.
Of course.
I already had so much stress that was on me to try to perform.
Mm.
How could I even think about something that was sexual? This is not like a sexual this is not something that's going to help garner the rest of my life
Mm.
or change my life.
Well, and as well, to sort of say that this is really about power, isn't it? More than the physical side of things, because this is a huge power imbalance for you. You know, you're just coming of age. This person has a lot of power, a lot of say, and then they're using you for. I think a
As a
lot of it
con.
is about power, isn't it? It's not just
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
physical. A lot of people don't recognize that.
yeah. No, it's something, what people can't have is if you have all the money in the world, you're able to get that Bugatti, like stupid
Mm.
money,
Yeah.
$340 million or whatever, 34,000, whatever. Buy the $1 million, condo in Dubai. The one thing that they can't get is our
Mm.
soul.
Mm.
And they can't get you. And that's because they go, "Well, what can't I have?
Mm. Mm.
Something that's unobtainable, something that's fresh, something that's unique, something that's virgin, something that's sweet."
And that's quite intoxicating for a lot of people, unfortunately so, particularly when they've got their own trauma in their life, and they're not balanced. And we've seen it go on, arguably for thousands of years, through religious institutions to entertainment. Um, it's great though, the spotlight and conversations like these, and even you opening up and sharing the details of this, I think is powerful.
Well, look, I mean, I'm passionate about your message, Paul, and I'm passionate about sharing my story with you and with anybody that is willing to listen.
Mm.
There's so much good, though, guys. There's so
Mm.
much good that's out there. And I found the good too.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I didn't have the bad, I would have never recognized the good.
Mm.
So it's really important to, even though I'm preaching on all of these things that got me to where I'm at, and those bad experiences were what elevated me to be prepared to receive the the good that was to come.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, well said there. Absolutely. And that's how we learn, isn't it? Through experience, through lessons. and we certainly can look at our lives very differently from that perspective. So, you know, you just come of age, 18 years of age, and you're in this CBS world, right? It's CBS that produced,
Yeah.
in Los Angeles there, and this happens. What sort of happens next? You know, you've got this predatory behavior from males and females going on.
Well, I ended up leaving the show, is what I
Wow.
did.
Okay. Okay.
I
So it got too
I
much for
had
you.
my turn. No, yeah, it got too much, and I ended up I fired a flare with a legal team, and I said, guys, I'm not gonna be a pawn in this predatory world.
Mm, mm,
And there was several different things that were going on,
right.
and I said, enough was enough. I'm like, and I think what had happened right after that producer, the male producer I'm talking about, he was fired. He was gone.
Mm.
Right.
And this had happened to
Yeah,
other younger men, right, as well on the show.
it wasn't just me, no.
Right.
And
Okay.
it wasn't just my case. There, it was something that had happened multiple times. And the fact that they had allowed him to stay on as long as they did to do the
Mm,
same thing to other young actors, um, obviously was weighing, and they ended up making that change. Great, good for them.
mm.
A little too late for me.
For you. Yeah.
And I just, I said, sayonara, I'm out. And then I went from making great money to broke. No money,
Mm,
no money coming in, right? I always call soap operas, they're like the blue collared world of acting,
acting.
because
Yeah.
you do a lot of work for a little pay. And
Mm,
you look at a lot of, like, there's some, like, back in the day, if you were in that heyday of the 1970s and 80s, they were making a ton of money. It was very important, because we only had CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, whatever was available at that time. And those were the stations you watched. So all the sponsors paid a lot of money to be on those channels. Well, as things progress, cable TV, HBO, AMC, this, that, next thing you know, like, now people are watching everything everywhere. So numbers start to dive. Women are back in the workforce. Now the numbers on soap operas are diving because they're during the daytime,
mm,
at least in America.
mm.
So like, all of a sudden, like, when I started, there was like 15 different shows that were on air, soap operas, As the World Turns, Another World,
Yes.
all these American soap operas, and they were slowly dying one at a time, just falling off, falling off, falling off.
Mm, mm.
And so it was really like, it was a lot of work. And they were going, can we do, instead of doing one episode a day, can we do three? Can we do three now? You guys up for that? You good? And you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to stop in between. We're just going to say reset, and you go into your next scene. And
Wow.
we're like, what? How are we going to do that?
Mm,
And eventually, after 20 some years of doing it, 25 years or whatever I was involved, I just said, enough was enough. I did my time. I enjoyed it. But there was those circumstances again, like, we
mm.
were talking about.
So you left The Bold and the Beautiful, and then how did you go on to another show at that point?
I did, yeah. So I wasn't immediate.
Mm,
I went from, like, just, this whole controversy that was happening there, with this male producer and female executive, and decided to just, abandon ship, right?
mm.
And at this point, I had been nominated for my first Emmy, so I had a little bit of street cred that was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a little bit of something. There was a little magic that was happening. And at that point, I was auditioning for things like Dawson's Creek, like when it was first coming out. I mean, this is dating me now, but
Yeah.
this was the era that
Yes.
I was involved in. And so I was auditioning for everything and anything under the sun that was around that time.
Mm,
But an executive producer took over at General Hospital, and she had really loved me.
mm,
And I didn't know her personally, but she liked my work. And her husband, Alan, was also a big movie producer who did like movies like Deep Blue Sea, like
mhm,
with Samuel Jackson. Rennie Harlan directed it. Rennie Harlan, directed Sylvester Stallone in Cliffhanger and several other like action movies. And so I got hired not long after that. I auditioned multiple times, but because of the work that I had done on Bold and the Beautiful and the accolades, that's how that came about. And I was about a year later, after being like kind of pretty much actor broke, sleeping on couches, I got into into General Hospital, and then from there, this was probably the most I'm not, for me, was the most coveted role. I won the Emmy for that role, but not the most, recognizable role for me. But I got to work with Tony Geary, who's an icon in America for his work, and of course Jeannie Francis, who played my mother. And it was that was a really hard transition to get into that. Um, yeah, I've talked about that story a lot. We can talk about it, but it was an interesting time. I only stayed on for my contract, and I left after my contract because I felt my worth was more than what they were offering me to stay on, which was exactly the same amount of money that I was being paid when I started.
yeah.
So I just said, you know what, like, guys, I'll move on.
Mm, mm,
I mean, and guys, also anybody who's listening, life is not about money, but you also need to know your self-worth.
mm,
And you need to know when it's time to, fire that engine to make
mm.
sure that people that they know too. They know what you're worth. And
Well, it was almost like life was testing you repeatedly, wasn't it, for that? Because, you had quite a number of incidences where you had an opportunity to stand up for your worth and to speak out. And it's good to see that you're doing that on a number of occasions, really at a young age. And I think no judgment on those that maybe don't feel they have the power or the voice at such a young age to do so. But you were showing signs of really self-empowerment back then, and having the courage to leave.
yeah, yeah. My good friend Ken Schreiner, and you all can look him up. He's an actor. His brother, um, he also has a twin brother, Will Schreiner, who used to be on the Johnny Carson show many, many times. He always used to tell me, you need to know when to get in and need to know when to get out.
Mm, mm,
And I think that stands with any kind of profession. It doesn't matter. It's like, look, know when to show up, know when to get out,
mm.
whether it's a short meeting, a long meeting, or whether it's your career.
Yeah.
If you know it's temporary, know it's temporary.
Mm.
Know it's just a band-aid to get to the next place.
Yeah. 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 Very, very wise advice there from him.
Mm. Yeah. So I guess speaking upon moving on from there was the next thing was I left. So what happened during General Hospital? And this is probably the most disappointing thing that had ever happened in my life, and also the probably the most amazing thing that happened in my life was I was auditioning continuously. I'd just gotten on General Hospital. I was working. Suddenly, I was auditioning for a movie called Driven about a Indy car racer, and Sylvester Stallone was producing it. Rennie Harlan, again, right? Same
Mm.
guy directing it. And next thing you know, I've auditioned 4 times, and now I'm auditioning with Sly Stallone. And Sylvester Stallone is, and I'm in the room with him, and we do our audition, and we have a really great feel. He's like, hey, let me, maybe you do a little bit like, like this, and next thing you know, we're rapping, and he's like, I leave that, I get hired for the job.
Wow.
This is a film that aired, right? I wasn't in it, but I'll tell you the story, what happened. So next thing you know, Sly wants to meet with me down at the Peninsula Hotel in Bel Air or Beverly Hills. And we're hanging out, and we walk in there, and we actually show up almost at the same time, check into valet. It's a hotel, right? And there he is. And I'm walking right next to him, right? We sit down, he lights up a cigar, and he goes, Jacob, let me tell you something. You know why you're a star? Because the whole room was looking at you when we walked in. I was like, no, Sly, that's not the case. They were looking at you. He's like, and he was just giving me lots of good mojo. Felt awesome to hear that from him, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And anyway, ABC decided to file a $9 million lawsuit if I was to go shoot this movie.
Wow.
That's like 10% of what I was making on that show.
Wow.
And they were willing to file a $9 million lawsuit against.
So this was for General Hospital, right? Because this
during General Hospital.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
and so here I am, right? Just starting this new role in General Hospital. And now I'm getting offered this major role in a film. It's like $50 million film, race cars, all the shit I love. And now I'm being told I can't do it.
Wow.
And even Sly had the wardrobe lady. She came up to the house, fitted me for the race suit, the helmet, the whole thing. I was ready to fly out to start shooting. And the thing is, with this it wasn't even just that. It wasn't as simple as that. They were saying they were going to let me do this movie. They were saying, we will, they said, we will do 2 days on. You can have him for these days, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, what if he doesn't make the flight? And Stallone was like, well, if he wants my jet, he can have my jet. And like, he was willing to give me his jet fly from Toronto to LA, back and forth, if I needed to make my call times. So basically, this woman and ABC single-handedly squashed this deal for me. It was probably the biggest heartache in my career because these opportunities don't come very often.
Yeah.
And I remember going into our executive producer's office, and I love this woman. I've worked with her since. She's still a really nice lady. But we had an all-out argument. And I said, how could you do this? How can you do this? This is, this doesn't happen every day.
What was her response to that when you said that to her?
She started crying.
Oh, okay.
She started crying. And I started crying. And then we hugged.
Did she give you a reason of why they were going down this road?
What was happening was I found out later that she was actually on her way out as executive producer.
Okay.
Right. But she had no control at that point. And she didn't want to allow that to be known. And then very shortly after, a new executive producer took on the role, and I was up for renegotiations to stay on that show, and they wanted to renegotiate. And I said no. And I walked away from that show because of that experience. But there was other things that were internal too. But I'm not like look, the whole thing, like I've been very blessed to be, have been able to be a part of a lot of shows. The next show I went on was All My Children. In
Mm,
between, I did the movie The Girl Next Door, of course, which was a great experience, and working with Chuck Gordon, October Sky, Field of Dreams,
mm,
just to name a few of his really great movies. And
yeah.
working
Yeah.
on The Girl Next Door with him it was a whole nother thing, totally
Yeah.
different dimension. And I realized just how good it actually could be. Um, and I was kind of sitting in that square mindset of just like, I'm going to do this movie thing. I'm going to hang out,
Mm,
do this movie deal. What I found out, though, is there was a sister show of General Hospital called Port Charles.
mm,
And there was another executive producer that was there. Her name was Julie Carruthers. And she'd been taking notes on everything that was going on. And she's, found out what I was doing this movie. She goes, you want to meet up for a dinner because I'm going to be taking over executive producer at All My Children, which was one of the longest running soaps.
mm,
So I ended up I took that, and she goes, we want to offer you either one or two roles. It's up to you. And so I was like, this was my child. I watched this show with my mom
mm,
growing up. And I said,
mm,
wow, man, this is awesome.
mm.
So that's so I mean, long story long, I'm sorry to drag this out.
No,
And you
no,
can cut
no.
that any way you want, brother. But that was how this sort of the whole trilogy of these shows came about.
Mm,
Um, and then the success of that show escalated. I had a great run on there. I think it was 1,600 episodes I did with that company. Did Broadway while I was in New York. Had a great time doing that. And then when that show got canceled, Bold and Beautiful called me back, and that's where the twist happens.
yeah. Please go on. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, no, I mean, I went back. I went back to the roots, right? They were like, oh, that guy's gone. He was fired. He's not going to be a problem anymore.
Mm, mm,
And
right.
neither was the family member
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
not going to be the problem anymore. But about a couple years into the contract, that family member came back,
Right.
and
Right.
it made my life completely uncomfortable. And eventually I just said, you know what? Life's more precious than having to relive
Mm,
all those horrible moments. And I told my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not happy. I
mm,
need to make me happy, and I need to get out. And so I did. And I started creating my own projects, my own films, creating my own opportunities. And guess what? I'm more successful because I did that.
yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that
Wow.
something?
Absolutely. And I think there's so much in that, for someone to learn about standing in their power, and not putting up with certain conditions that we tend to, and and I've seen this in so many different industries. We can sell our soul, so to speak, through wanting to stay in something. We compromise our integrity. We allow abusive behavior because we're so afraid, right? And I think it's commendable to you that you had the bravery to really stand up in the face of injustice. And now, I mean, look at you doing so many things now, and I know you're doing training with people. But before we go into that, I wanted to ask you kind of this moment of handling fame, and a lot of people speak about this. I know that you had some personal struggles, maybe that aren't so well known. You can share what you are comfortable with, um, of what it was like to have this fame and this recognition.
Well, that's a great question, Paul. Uh, it's it's misleading. I can say that much.
Yeah.
When I stepped into this sort of arena of acting, again, I was only 17.
Mm.
And suddenly I was thrust into, being on TV, doing interviews, doing photo shoots, and then actually seeing something in magazines. And at 17 years old, you go, wow, I'm the shit.
Mhm.
Because like, what else are you going to do at 17 years old? Like, you don't even have the skill set. Most people don't. I mean,
Mm.
at least I did, to say, that, look, this is temporary, or this is something that's going to maybe continue to happen or not, but just take it with stride.
Mm.
And so for a moment, I wanted to experience that. And it was interesting. I mean, I couldn't go to bars, right? Couldn't go out
Yeah.
because I was
Mm.
underage.
Your own
So I'd go to
apartment,
coffee.
but yeah, no
Yeah,
bus.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I would go to like coffee shops, but I'd meet a lot of people. It was fun. There was something really wonderful about that experience because everybody in that area, Hollywood, for the most part, are either trying to be something, trying to get something done, trying to get something made, or just trying to be a complete, like, false presence in that area, that trying to be something that they're not.
Mm.
So you encounter the entire realm.
Absolutely.
Uh,
It's a very interesting place. I spent about 6 months living there and encountered that. It was a very interesting experience. And you're right. Everyone is aspiring to be that lives there generally. It's either in production or it's in front of the camera. But you'd
yeah,
achieved
well,
it. You'd achieved it, right? And for the vast majority of individuals, that is a dream that's not realized.
yeah, it's not. And even it wasn't a dream that I was realizing, I think.
Mm,
I
mm,
was living it, but
mm,
not really seeing it, right?
mm, mm,
I was young, I was naive, I was being invited to the Playboy Mansion. Yeah, oh wow, that's such a great thing. Wow, wow, wow. Playboy Mansion,
mm,
Hugh Hefner. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty cool,
mm,
but that did not honestly, make me as who I, my idea, I guess as a child I was like, oh, Playboy, this, that. We all want to see that. We wanted to see that, and I saw it. I experienced it. I met Hugh multiple times. Um, but that's not what, that's a deja vu of experiences that people are trying to get, and that's what's happening in LA. That's what's always happened in LA. There are some true artists there. There are true artists that are working their asses off, and I will not take that away from them. I love a lot of my friends that are still based in Los Angeles, but a lot of
mm.
them have had the know how to get out of LA.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it
it's
makes
not.
me think of an Australian actor. I'm sure you be familiar with him, Chris Hemsworth, who has achieved
I'm sorry,
enormous success.
I've never heard of this guy before.
Yes, yeah, I know. But it's interesting that he decided, him and his wife, and I think he's got a number of children. They're based here in Australia, Byron Bay, which is where they're based, and he now demands, I suppose he can, ask a lot of the films he does are made here in Australia, because I just don't think he could have remained in that town with the energy, you might say, of that.
Well, not just the energy. It's just like, getting out of your house. I mean, you got, when you have that
That's
kind of fame,
yeah,
then I'm familiar with Byron Bay because I've read the articles with Chris making that
yeah.
transformation. I saw Zac Efron also was like, I'm
Mm.
leaving America to do
It's
it as
kind
well,
of like let me give the comparison of what it would
like
be in the
Austin,
US.
Texas or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
just I mean, you get on a lot of like hippie types, and it's beautiful by the water. But a lot of now celebrities
Well,
spend
I've heard
time.
also that a lot of the Byron Bay people that have been there, like, you guys are kind of effing everything up for us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they feel it's becoming too commercial now and overpriced. And I mean, it is a beautiful spot, but everyone seems to want to be there, and
How far are you
tourism's
away
crazy.
from there?
Probably about 3 hours flight. It's the top of New South Wales, which is the same state as where Sydney is. It's just between the border between Queensland and New South Wales, but it is actually in New South Wales.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is
Uh,
yeah.
well, your point is so on point, I must say, because that is exactly what is happening. And most of my
Mm,
friends who are um they're either have already been embedded in Los Angeles and they're just there. They're like
mm,
older and their lives are there. But
mm,
most of the talent that I know have have started to go like, well, maybe what about Wyoming? What about Montana? What
mm.
about Austin, Texas? And they're just like they're all like in droves jumping ship to go to other locations because once they
Wow.
realize the self tape, like, and this is for our non-actors,
Mm,
um we used to go in person to audition for our casting directors.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
everything is done. Now we're not only the actor, we're the producer, we're also, the editor, and then we have to also upload it and then hope to God and pray that out of the 1,000 auditions, instead of the 100 auditions,
yeah,
that we're going to be selected for an opportunity.
yeah.
It's a real drab world now, unfortunately. But at the same
Mm,
time, we all went, wait,
yeah.
wait. Does
It's
that mean I have to
probably
live in Burbank? So can I leave? Can I leave Studio City? Oh,
mm,
I don't need to be in North Hollywood anymore. I mean, I
mm,
can go home.
mm,
Perfect.
yeah.
So
Well, that and in a lot of ways, it's a good thing because I mean, a lot of actors would get caught up in industries they didn't really want to be in, working really hard and never often getting that break. Well, more often than so, would never get the break. I think it broke a lot of people. I mean, it's the ugly side of this fame thing that we maybe don't see the real exposure to, or we don't talk about it so much. Um, did that bring up a sense of guilt with you when you would interact with some of these people that hadn't made it and you had made it? Did you feel a sense of why me and not them? Or
yeah, well, that's a really good observation, Paul. Yeah, I mean, I feel it's my due diligence to pass it on.
mm, mm. And
Um,
you're working with young actors even to this day, right? And I'm sure that you're coming across this a lot, this idea that when we obtain that it's going to be somewhat different to what the actual experience is. Do you feel a sense of conviction to be really honest about really what that process is for those that haven't experienced it?
well, thank God that it's changed a lot. I
Mm.
mean, with everything that's going on, I don't think that there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be some graves that are dug up for sure. We haven't seen the end of the Epstein and the Harry, Weinsteins and
Mm.
all the nonsense that had gone on with all those guys and gals.
Yeah, that's
But
an important distinction, isn't it? I mean, often we don't hear those stories.
exactly, but because there's been such a massive push to put those things into the front, in front of people and understand what had been going on. A
Mm.
lot of that's changed. What I feel entitled to do is to create better artists, give young people an opportunity to believe that there is not only an artistic sanctuary, but there's also an opportunity for success. And it has to be with inside of, you know, tenuring to your art, making sure that you're putting your art first, not fame, not TikTok, not social media, but really concentrating on what is the most important thing to you. And so my programs now that so excited about what we're doing is incredible. I mean, we're expanding now to Nashville, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee next year as well, and Hampton, Virginia, all under the Ford Motor Company.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and that experience and how that came about?
Yeah, it's really been an interesting progression. I decided a couple years ago that I really wanted to make sure that I was giving back to the next artist. And how do I do that? How do I give back? What can I do? What can I facilitate? So it started in the form of education, teaching, right? Just simply working with actors. And I had already been doing that my entire career, which I didn't even realize. I was like, oh, you mean the same thing I've been doing with all my friends? I can just help other people do that too. So I started doing that and started talking to schools, because what's been happening in the United States is we're losing a lot of integrity with our arts programs. I mean, the last 10 years, theater programs have been suffering. Pathway programs that can lead kids to the arts are gone. They're just gone. And I felt it was my civic duty to do whatever I can to make sure that these kids that were inspired by the arts could still have that platform to, maybe make a career out of it, or at least have an opportunity to do something that they were passionate about. So with that being said, I started running around with my partner, Trent Garrett. Trent Garrett, you can look him up. Trent Garrett's a successful actor. He's been on, he's the dad on the Disney show Andy Mack. He's also the show New Girl, multiple episodes. He's been on Netflix movies, on and on. The guy just works and works. He's got a Magnum PI episode that's out right now. And I love this guy because he shares that same passion with me. And we said, we need to reform this. We need to reinvigorate artist programs in public schools, and not just public schools, schools that are poverty stricken, kids that are so disconnected from Hollywood, so far away from that never thought they could actually even achieve something like this. And so our program, that with people that we're working with in Hampton, Virginia, they're like, tell us more. How can we do this? Well, now we've created an entire staple, a platform, a curriculum. Paul, and I appreciate you asking me about this. There's even a website that's under development right now where it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, we can help create and manifest that for anybody. I don't care if you're in Australia or Ireland or South Africa or, Malaysia, wherever. We can connect you to mentors that will help to facilitate your dream.
Wow. Yeah.
To work at home.
And we can give some details in this in the show notes of this episode for people and to get those links.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing is just stay tuned. If you're interested in following me on Instagram, I will definitely be posting on there, of course. But the program it's just sort of a real opportunity for kids to make film starting in high school. A lot of these kids, even it doesn't matter where you are in the world, they don't have the opportunity or the money to be able to pay for a secondary school, especially a film program, which is pretty expensive. What we're doing is we're taking vocational skills that are already adapted into film programs, hospitality, transportation, medical, law, carpentry, media. We're basically, these are all vocational skills that are already happening in film. So why can't we just combine all of them and make a movie? I mean, it's they've already been dancing around it.
Yeah.
These schools. Yeah. So I'm creating a need where there wasn't one, or where it needed to be, rather, I guess.
Yeah.
There was a need. There's been a need for this because people go like, look, I'm a theater person. I love that. I did theater. I was on Broadway. Love it. But my friends on Broadway who are living their dream, barely paying their rent.
I remember you shared that in our last conversation, and I've gone back to that thought many times, and it's incredibly sad, isn't it? Because obviously, we do look at those people that are the bigger names on Broadway, and they do earn good money. But I think it was the other day that I was looking at one of the statistics. It was out of the UK, and I think it was from the trusts that look after actors and entertainers in the UK. And it was something like only about 6% of those that work actively in the entertainment industry are living beyond the minimum wage. So it's a phenomenon that's occurring all around the world in entertainment, and it's kind of a sad thing, isn't it? We see the bigger names; they earn great money, but everyone else in that industry, unfortunately, tends to not.
Well, what we need to do is we need to instill the fact that they can make money right out of school. And they just have to understand where the money's coming from. I mean, kids are now familiar with TikTok. They're now familiar with social media. They know that those platforms, YouTube, they make money. But also creating creating opportunities with video, film, right out of high school without having to pay a tuition. You can be doing it right now, making money. Absolutely. We need PAs. We need students that are willing to step on a set and learn. And every single mentor that I've had on all of my mentorship programs, I said, how did you get your start? They said, well, I kept my mouth shut. I listened to what was said, and I did my job. And now what? Oh, you're a showrunner. You're an executive producer. You're a camera A operator. People that are following their dreams. Well, it doesn't require college to do that. So, and to join the union, it's union jobs, retirement, medical. So my intention is to change the game, and the idea of like, it's unobtainable, especially at least for me within the United States. And hopefully this can resonate to, other countries as well.
Internationally. Where do you see entertainment, acting, movies in, say, 15 or 20 years' time? And I know we're going through this huge transition period, even with emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. Where do you see it all going? Do you think it's going to be a fairer, more balanced system?
That's a really, really good question.
It's a loaded question, isn't it? There's a lot in
there.
that.
Actually, I've put a lot of thought into this question, and I'm not surprised that you're asking it. AI is really changing the game as far as story writing and everything across the board. I mean, medicine, we know that it's going to potentially cure cancer or potentially extend our lives.
Absolutely.
Which is a really important part of us as humans, at least the humans that want to continue to live on. And I don't know about you, but I'm a human that would like to live.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'm if we can extend the age of life, I always say this, often it's in our later years that we find great wisdom through life experience, but then inevitably in older age, it's probably some, illness that takes our life. If we could not be so susceptible to illness and age with, uh, grace and not fall apart, so to speak, in
Yeah,
those later years,
and die
what
comfortably, you know.
exactly, and why
So
not use the wisdom that's been obtained over a long life and continue to be able to work and do the things that generally age prevents us from doing.
here's the threat though with AI in the artist world. Um, I could plug in a story. It's hey, Paul and Jacob are, coal miners that are, trying to go for after the California gold strike.
Mm,
They heard and they leave the East Coast, they travel by train, they get there, and we hit gold and blah blah blah. Right. I could just plug that in and that story is written.
mm,
I
mm,
mean, there's going to be some grammatical errors and things that we
mm,
need to be refining, but here's the problem. Now we're taking all of that artistic integrity of what our authors have been doing for so many years,
mm,
and now how do we know it wasn't written by them?
mm,
Or how do we know it wasn't IA or
mm.
artificial AI
Yeah,
rather?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
how do we know that this is so that's going to be the biggest problem with the workforce as far as moving forward, specifically for film, TV, because now here we have the writers, they're striking today. They striked yesterday. Did
Yeah,
you know about
yeah.
this? Writers.
I'm hearing about it. Yes, and apparently
Yeah.
a lot of production is on
This
hold.
happens. This happens every 15 years or 10
Mm,
years. I've been through
mm.
several of them already in my career.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is that these guys and gals work their asses off to do what they do and have joined a union and have created a really beautiful, body of work. And now suddenly these people that, that can do, write these beautiful stories that take them a month, 2 months, 3 months can be written in 15 seconds.
So, do you think that is particularly affecting this strike that's going on now, the emergence of AI?
I think the main focus on this particular strike, and that's a good question, is really about streaming platforms and
Okay.
making sure that they're getting paid their due diligence
Mm,
because there hasn't been some boundaries and understanding about what they should be paid for their show being on a streaming platform versus a network show.
yeah,
I think that's probably the number one issue.
yeah.
But yes,
But
what you
this
what
is
you just
another
asked,
issue that comes. Look,
this is
I
going to
think it's a huge one for not just the entertainment industry, but all industry. Is how do we effective? I mean, it's inevitable. It's here. It's happening. It's probably unavoidable in that sense. But how can we ethically implement it and to keep valuing the human contribution to art or
I
whatever
honestly don't
industry?
know how they're going to regulate it, to be
Mm,
honest. I don't
mm,
know how that's going to be a thing.
mm,
Until they can actually, track it,
mm,
then but there's always something special though. And this is me just, putting the cherry on top of you know, the dessert, is that I think we know instinctively, as human beings, we can recognize what is authentic, what is unique. Um, and I think that, that there will have to be some sort of regulations that are put in place for that.
mm.
But I do believe that truth will always succeed, especially in this particular environment. It has to. We cannot take away. the integrity of a writer. This has been going on for centuries,
I
10,000
completely agree.
years,
Yeah.
etched in
I,
stone, my brother,
mm, mm.
you know, etched in stone. We're writers, right?
What
Right.
people fail to recognize with particularly AI is all it is doing is people say, "Oh, it sounds like it's human. It's like read my humans." It's because it really is. It's just this technology is just grabbing what humans have written and created, and it's putting it all together essentially.
Yeah.
So it's not creative in
Streamlining.
the sense of it's coming up with all these ideas. It's basically just popping out what it's been trained on, which is human intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's going to be some wonderful benefits from AI.
Mm,
100%.
mm,
I'm looking forward to seeing the progression of what is offered through
mm,
AI.
mm.
The
One of the best
artistic,
examples I was given recently, and this showed me the power of automation. Someone was sharing an example of one industry where AI would be beneficial, and that's in the area of healthcare and nursing. They said that about 40% of someone working as a nurse in healthcare, about a 40% of their workday is filling out forms, the paperwork side of things. They're saying that this automation, this AI would be able to really replace that 40% of no one really enjoys that aspect of the job, but they would be able to focus more on the human being
well,
available to.
also I think it's going to also not only improve that, but it's also going to take a lot of doctors out of their positions where they're going to need to become healers, not so much
I agree.
uh,
I agree. I
not so
think
much on the PhD side, but figuring out how to heal people through whether it's meditation or whatever special practices while they're
mm,
going through whatever they're going through, because we're going to
mm,
be able to solve those equations, right? AI is going to say, you
well,
need A, B, and
absolutely.
C to
Mm,
fix you,
mm,
and then we're like, well, how do I deal with this emotionally, right? So
absolutely.
our doctors potentially become healers.
I agree with you. I think we're just starting to see how much of an exciting time of evolution that we are at now in human evolution. And many have spoken about this time for a long, long time. I think we're starting to see the beginning stages of it, where we're going to go through enormous change, um, prolongment of life. I think is going to be accepted soon, and even the quality of life being dramatically improved. I think this is something that's hugely exciting about in its own right.
Oh, I agree 100%. So what a great question. And it's been on my mind every single day. I think about, there's not a moment, during the day that I don't think about it for a second, go AI, AI. Like
Mm.
it's just so prevalent right now. And thinking about
I
like,
don't
well,
think it's possible to escape it because it's going to be the big next leap that we take, and how we can. And I think it's important to have these conversations because I think it's so important that we get the balance right. That we don't become extreme and we say, well, we're going to vehemently oppose its implementation, but how do we ethically allow its implication?
let
I'm
me,
getting tongue
let me
tied
ask you
there on
that.
that word.
Actually, I would love to, ask you that is because
Yeah.
that's such a great point. How would we be able to ethically, implement those ideas? Like what in your idea, like as far as like,
Mm,
AI coming into our lives, like how should they control this? How would we get
mm.
there? And that's me just asking because I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think it's a wonderful question. I think we have to be guided always by a moral compass, and this is where I have faith in human nature and the human condition. I think well above um, any negativity, the traits of the human spirit are good at its core for the vast majority of us. Um, we can often through media focus on those that are committing heinous crimes, and we tend to focus on the negative, but the vast majority of humans I believe are ethically guided, just by their own principles, the upbringing, what resonates with them. And so I believe in the power of that, and we will be guided. So I think legislation is important, because legislation really is kind of driven by this belief in goodness. So I think that, like every industry, we need legislation to protect people. So I think that's coming, and I think that we all need to be play a part in guiding that process as to what we're comfortable with, at a rate that we're comfortable with, because this technology is there. I think it can do far more than what we're seeing it doing right now. I think that's there, but it's up to us to decide what we want and how quickly it moves.
Yeah. How quickly would you like it to move?
Oh, great question. Well, I think it's moving at a really, really rapid pace right now. I think we're already seeing um, how this technology can be abused. I think that's concerning for people. I think we want to address some of those issues right in the beginning, and put protections in place so that it can't be abused. Um, and then, when we create a healthy synergy with it, we can see what the technology can do. I mean, even in my own work, I can see opportunities to focus rather on my creativity rather than the monotonous tasks that come with content creation. And so I think that in itself is a massive benefit.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's interesting, and those regulations, they really do need to be figured out. And it's gonna waver between country to country based upon what they're,
Totally.
you know, allowing. So it's gonna be interesting in the next 2 years, 1 year, to see
Mm.
exactly how much is evolved. But I'm excited about the medical advances. I think that's really the most important thing. I think that's the one thing that matters the most to everyone. It's like,
I think so. Yeah, I think
I think
so.
we
And
should.
as a parent, I'm sure you think about that, and even the grappling of living a longer, healthier life. I think I know I'm excited about that. Like, and I think a
Well,
lot of
shoot,
people
man,
would
you're young, right?
be.
How,
Exactly, and I think it would be good to stay that way as long as it can.
yeah.
Why not?
Agreed. Agreed. I
Why not?
totally agree. And I want some longevity, and I want them to say, you got another 15 years and you can hang in there. So I
Absolutely.
I, I can't tell you how much I agree with that. So
Mm. Well, we live in interesting times and exciting times, and I'm very optimistic about the future. I really am, because I do believe in a positive trajectory that we're moving in. It doesn't mean there's not going to be challenges. It doesn't mean we're not going to see some unwanted things, but like your life and in so many, it's often the unfavorable things that form our best decision making process. Our greatest lessons are derived from our biggest challenges.
yeah,
So,
agreed. Yeah. No,
mm,
it does. I mean, I cannot take anything away from everything I've experienced in my life because it's exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Mm. Yeah. A
Makes any sense.
great place to wrap this up, actually. A beautiful
Yeah.
statement. And often when we're going through a challenge, we can, really fight against it and not understand it fully from that level. But when we've gone through it and we've learned the lesson that inevitably comes from it, we're often grateful for the experience. And then it redirects our life in often different directions from having that trauma or that grief or that loss.
So true. Paul, I love your words. I love your philosophy. Um, I hang on every word, and I would like anybody who is open to also listen to what you have to say, because
Mm.
you have some very important things to say,
Thank you.
necessary things that need to be said.
Mm.
Continue your work. And I want to obviously continue our friendship. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to
you,
have you come back and love these conversations. I think they're quite fascinating on so many different levels, aren't they?
well, you enlighten me, brother, and the same. So let's do it.
Amazing. Thank you again for your time. And we'll leave all the appropriate links and everything for everyone to get in touch.